Welcome to Image City Photography Gallery's show we call The Magic of Light 2021. One of our guest photographers is Walter Jakubowski.
How you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. It's a miracle of modern technology here. I've been working on this series for a long time. I call it A Stranger in a Strange Land. When I started shooting these abstract images, first I'll admit that I'm a landscape photographer, first and foremost. So when I'm looking at these abstract images, of which I find in paint that's flaking off, rusted metal, and things like that, that I have to admit that I view it as a landscape. I'm seeing some kind of bizarre landscape here, maybe from another planet or someplace.
I want to talk about that particular photo. You call it River of Gold. Tell me why you chose that name. I assume it's because of that little bit of gold paint that we see across horizontal in the middle of it there. Huh?
When I'm capturing an image, I'm not sure how I'm going to crop it later. Once I get it into the software, and then I start to play around with it, how the image is going to turn out. Okay, so I'm not sure how I'm going to crop the image at the time I'm capturing. So when I find something that's visually interesting, it's usually from a compositional perspective, maybe like a graphic or just something that I find interesting. So I capture it, and then later, once I get the image into the computer and I start working with it, I decide how it's going to turn out. Because these are abstract images, I play around a lot with white balance. Even though I shot them during the daytime, well, when I'm working on the computer, I experiment with all kinds of white balance, colors, and I can ramp it up or down, and so I get the colors that I want. I actually spent quite a few hours, working on all the images. I actually use HDR techniques when I'm capturing. The purpose of that is that my philosophy is more information is better than less information. So that gives me like a lot of leeway in how that image is going to finally appear. And of course, the images do tend to be a little on the saturated side, but I've always been strongly attracted to color. And so this has really been kind of compelling to me. To find these images and the fact that they're kind of abstract, so that the interpretation open to the viewer. So what it means to me might be totally different than what it means to somebody else. But in this case, of the River of Gold, once I was working on the image and getting to the point where I liked it visually, I have to admit that I was seeing like a river that was cascading. I've been told that, when it comes to abstract images, you really shouldn't title it something that might lead the viewer. You should let the viewer decide what it means to him. But I felt that that this is what it means to me. It's my work, so I'm going to name it whatever I want.
The great thing about abstract photos is they lend themselves to viewer interpretation better than landscapes. I think when you're looking at a landscape, you pretty much know what you're looking at and what the subject is. But with an abstract, you don't always know that, and that's why it's good that it engages the viewer to take a look at and see what they see in it.
And probably no two people are going to see the same thing. When I'm working on an image, I'll show it to my wife and I'll say, "All right, now what do you see?" And she'll come up with stuff that that I don't see. So it really is pretty interesting from that perspective.
It really is. It's interesting to do that, and that's why. I think Betsy is so successful with the abstracts that she shows at the gallery, because they're so open to interpretation, and a lot of people wonder what they're looking at. Like in that case, you have yours is trying to figure out is that a rusty metal siding on a building, or is it the hull of a boat, or is it a side of a dumpster? You don't really know.
But if you're concentrating on what the subject matter might be, then you're kind of missing out on the effect of the overall image, because effectively the image has been transformed into something else.
I had a photographer tell me one time, he said, when you look at a scene and you decide you're going to take a photograph, before you do it, think what is it that just drew you to that, so that you make sure that that's what you capture. So if you're seeing texture and color, be sure you capture the texture and color, and don't get distracted by a doorknob or something that is to the side of what you were originally drawn to. I think it makes sense to do that,
I don't pay too much attention to texture. Like I said, I'm more focused on the composition And because of the subject matter, their rusted metal is loaded with texture. It's just loaded with it.
Thank you, Walter, and I hope people will come to the gallery to see your award-winning photograph and the other photographs we have on display at 722 University Avenue in Rochester.